Hello and welcome to another episode of Mark My Bird. If you notice someone else is doing the intro, yes, this is me, Mark Clavin. T-Bird decided to give me the responsibility this week because I haven't put out any episodes in a while. So we're flipping the script a little bit. T-Bird, how's it going?
It's going well. I feel like we were just on like a little bit of a summer break, right? It's downtime. There's not a lot going on. But yet you and I still FaceTime every single day. So I feel like even though we haven't recorded an episode in a little over a week, I haven't, not seen you. I noticed when we jumped on before we started the intro, what is over your right shoulder
Yeah.
currently?
That
Look
is
at
that is a
Oh,
painting of myself.
Mark, that is unbelievable.
Yeah. Jacka, my partner, painted it. We have a million undone paintings around here, and because of the electrical emergency going on, I had to jump out of my kitchen into our little outdoor room here. So she paints here a lot. We have dried flowers everywhere, getting ready to be painted and all that stuff. So
What is the electrical emergency that you had?
we bought a home to fix up, and I don't know how to fix anything. So we had like a 3-switch problem where I flipped the middle switch and all of a sudden it started buzzing and no lights went on or off, but like it was just making a lot of noise. So we called her dad over here to kind of fix it up. He was going to show me how to do it, but now I'm doing this. So just staving off being a man of the house and just recording a podcast.
I was told before in the first home we bought, we did a lot of renovations, and one of my friends is a contractor in New Hampshire, and he told me do whatever the fuck you want by yourself, right? Like it's all pretty turnkey, and you can figure it out on YouTube. But he said the one thing not to fuck with was electrical, because that's the only thing that can burn your house down, pretty much.
My cousin's an electrician. He came over here and he was just like, yeah, I don't have time to do this. He just laughed at us and he's like, why don't you fix that and that? What is this, your first house? And I was like, yes, it is my first house. And I have no idea how to do any of this. But yeah. All right. I guess we can get into the guest, unless you have any other updates.
I'm no big updates on my side. My parents are visiting from Florida, which is nice. They're here hanging out with my daughter. I kind of feel like the weather's starting to change in Portland and winter is kind of just around the corner.
It's supposed to be a dry winter though for a snowboarding news update, or warm winter.
Yeah, none of that shit ever tracks, really. I don't give it any credence. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, and we're gonna get snow at some point.
Back when our guest was working in snowboarding, that was probably one of the hottest online stories you could write, was always the winter report. But now nobody really cares because every single day is a historic event somewhere, so it doesn't really matter anymore.
That was a phenomenal transition, by the way.
I'm trying to stay on track today.
You're getting better at this, Mark. I swear. I don't care what anybody says, you are getting better.
Today's very confusing because I also have a big window looking into my neighborhood. So I have people walking by and cars driving by. It's going to be really hard to stay kind of.
Just look at me, buddy. We're playing catch.
All right. To the intro. Our next guest worked with my cousin for a little while. I still have a stack of magazines in my childhood closet with his name plastered all over it. He never took the reins, but he was the face of Transworld snowboarding from like 2010 to probably like 14, around that time. He looks exactly like the old cartoon drawings of him. He left snowboarding for New York City for a successful career in marketing or some, baloney kind of career. He produced a Shaun White documentary, or maybe just a commercial or a short leading up to the 2018 Gold. I don't think I ever watched it. He might have started the downfall of print media, but is probably also the only reason we currently have jobs, because he was one of the starters of the Instagram for Transworld. Currently runs his own company. We believe it's called Newman's Worldwide, but we really didn't look him up on LinkedIn, so we don't know. Welcome the one and only Jason Newman, a.k.a. Hondo.
Hondo. Oh, there it is.
Wow, what an intro.
You haven't aged a day. You still look exactly like the last time I saw you, which was probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you was like 5 years ago. You were still living in Salt Lake City.
I was. Yeah, so that was definitely 4+ years ago.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you leave snowboarding and have like a healthy life in one area, probably. You just
I'm,
age less.
I'm trying to get healthy these days. I've been doing lots of workout classes.
Oh boy.
And this is Hondo. This is your first podcast appearance ever, correct?
Yeah, ever. No one ever wanted to bring me onto a podcast. So
Dude, that is fucking mind blowing to me because you're one of the funniest people I think I know.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think you kind of also ushered in with your huge personality in snowboarding. I don't think Stan will give you credit, but you might have been part of the inception of Stan happening right after you left.
You know what's funny is the very first, what was it called? Hate Line?
Yep.
I was in Hate Line with Stan for the very first episode.
Yep.
And I just happened to be in Portland. He was filming it. And I was like, oh, let me sit in with you. And then he did his thing and I was there. And that was it. And then, he took off like a rocket ship. And
you never got to do another podcast.
I never did anything ever again. Yeah.
And 14 years later, you're on your first podcast. No, I want to
and also the lowest ranked podcast in snowboarding.
Hands down. But it's all good, man. We like being the underdog. I want to stay the underdog. Hondo, I want to go all the way back to whenever it was. Your name is Jason Newman. You're from Amesbury, Massachusetts, correct?
Andover, Massachusetts.
Andover, Massachusetts. I always get those two flip-flopped. How did you get the name Hondo, and what does it mean?
So I got the name, I was at Loon. I was 12 years old, and in Andover, there was a guy who grew up there named Mike Parziel, like Plymouth legend, Andover legend.
Saw him last winter, by the way, at the Best Western in Hood River. He is fucking one of the smartest, dopest dudes on earth.
One of the best dudes. And
I don't know about one of the smartest if he's staying at a Best Western. Just saying.
It's a nice Best Western. Stay in your lane, Mark. Parziel is brilliant.
Yep. And he used to run these snowboard camps out of his dorm to start with in Plymouth, New Hampshire, through the town of Andover.
Once again, sounding a little creepy.
Yeah, they was Mike and Preston Stroud and Luke Matheson and like a bunch of the Plymouth like OGs. And I put my snowboard in the gondola the wrong way at Loon, and I was 12 years old, and the lifty said, whoa there, Hondo. And everyone looked at me and they were like, what the fuck did he just call you? And it stuck.
So before Hondo, were you Jason? Were you Jay?
I was Jay for a minute in summer camp when I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
And then I was just Jason, yeah. And then in 6th grade, I went snowboarding with those older dudes and put my snowboard in the gondola the wrong way. And now
nobody ever called you Newman. You look like you work for the post office.
Nah, I was never Newman because my younger brother, Matt, he would go by Newman with his friends. He was Newman.
Did Seinfeld, like the advent of like your friend group watching Seinfeld, ruin your life for a little bit? Because I would imagine that show was so popular, people were probably like, hello, Newman.
Yeah, like it was, but it never really got as like annoying as you probably think it would.
Yeah.
Like
you're just probably like, yeah, whatever. You're
cool show. Like, fuck off, man.
Now, let me ask you this. Fast forwarding to like current day, you have, like your snowboard persona, your entire life leading up to like leaving the snowboard industry, you're Hondo this, Hondo that. Are you Hondo now to the people you work with, or are you Jason? Like, do you introduce yourself as Hondo? Because I run into it with T-Bird. I don't introduce myself as T-Bird because I feel weird.
Yeah, it kind of depends. So like my life was Hondo up until probably about 2014 is when I thought I was going to get rid of it. I moved to San Francisco to work at a creative agency. We were still working in snowboarding, so it's Hondo stuck.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to New York, I was like, all right, maybe it will go away. And it didn't really go away. And then I started working in New York at a creative agency again, that I got the job through a guy named Pat Tullis, who came from snowboarding too. And he was like, oh, meet my friend Hondo. So these people that had nothing to do with snowboarding would still call me Hondo sometimes. But now in like 2024, I'm not introducing myself as Hondo unless it's someone that I know is like through snowboard world or skateboard world, where like everyone else in the room knows me as Hondo.
But like, again, something that happens to me all the time. What happens when someone that knows you as Jason Newman finds out that your nickname is Hondo. That's always the awkward thing because then they're like,
yeah, then they're like, what the fuck did he just call you?
yeah, exactly. They're like, how'd you get the nickname Hondo? And
And then I
I'm
do
not
this. I'm
saying
like,
your story isn't, I'm not saying your story isn't great, but it wasn't this like big moment when I got the nickname T-Bird or you got the nickname Hondo. So you have to kind of tell this story that is maybe not that great. And it kind of
yeah.
them being like, oh,
Well,
okay.
Wait,
and
Bird,
my
real quick.
situation's a little tricky too because I met my wife Emily on Tinder, and it was back when you had to pull up your Facebook name to get a Tinder profile. So my name on the app was Hondo. So Emily only calls me Hondo, and her family only calls me Hondo, but everyone else calls me by my real name.
Yeah. It's a weird, it's a delicate dance, right? Where you're like, I'm finally gonna get rid of this nickname, and then it just seems to just follow you forever.
Yeah, now it's like,
I would admit, like if I lost T-Bird, like if I totally left the snowboard industry and never again said that my nickname was T-Bird, I'd be like kind of sad.
yeah,
It like
for
becomes
sure.
part of you, you know?
Yeah, if I like, I don't know, like Hondo is a nickname that's I got it when I was 12 years old. I'm about to be 38. It's been around my life forever. You know what I mean?
The last time I saw you, when I knew you were a big shot, was some fancy hotel Red Bull put me up in, and you just happened to be having a meeting there. Like you were like, oh yeah, no, my creative agency is just working on this gorgeous lobby floor, like very high up in New York
But
City. It was
it not even was it was my very first day at a new job, and I was like, oh shit, Clavin.
yeah, and I was like, hey, what's up, Hondo? So you probably had to explain that one.
Now I want to get into, I want to talk about how you started working for Transworld, and I'm also I need you to know that at Snowboarder, obviously it was a friendly rivalry, but Snowboarder and Transworld were always vying to be number one, right? Like you always
Yeah.
want to be the mag. The crew internally, I don't know why we didn't hire you, because we had Laura Austin, she was awesome, but I remember when you got hired, being like, "Fuck, he's kind of one of us." Like, how did they get Hondo? How did you end up at Transworld? I actually don't even know.
Yeah, it was weird. So like I went to college in Utah and I was living with Pat Moore was my roommate. Kyle Fisher was my roommate, and this guy, Eric Fernandez, was my roommate. So I was in college. We were all those guys were trying to be pro snowboarders. Pat was a pro snowboarder. The other guys were like trying to follow his footsteps. I realized I sucked, so I was like, oh, I gotta go to school. Finish school. I opened a skateboard shop for a year. The store, like, I lose all my money, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need a job again. I was friends with Preston, and I text Preston. I'm like, hey, can I come out to Mount Hood? I'm trying to become, I guess, a copywriter now because I got a degree in English. Can I come out and like rewrite the website or something? So I went to High Cascade that summer, and my job was like doing all the online content. So I like did the blog and the Twitter and Facebook, and it was pre-Instagram. So there was no Instagram.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I'm like, oh, all right, this is cool for a minute, but I'm gonna need a job afterwards. And I saw that Transworld had an online editor job posted on the website. And I was like, oh, okay, this could be a cool job. Like, obviously I want to do this. And I knew that Annie Fast was gonna make her way to Mount Hood that summer. She was the editor-in-chief at the time. I was like, I'm gonna find Annie Fast. And I was strategic about it. And I somehow was able to get on the chairlift with her going up the Palmer snowfield.
Like intentionally or unintentionally?
I was gonna find her, but then I saw her in the lift line, and I like maneuvered my way so we'd be on the same chair.
Good
And
man.
it was me, Pat Fenelon, Annie, and someone else. I don't remember who else was on it. And I knew Pat and Annie knew each other. They started the convo. I introduced myself, and she's like, "What do you do at camp?" Tell her I'm doing all the content, this and that. And I was like, I saw that you've got the online editor open. I want to I think it'd be good. And she was like, all right, when we get off the hill today, let's meet for coffee and we'll talk. Have the day of snowboarding. And then I go meet her at the cafe in Govey. She like interviews me. The next week they fly me out to California, and I meet the rest of the Transworld staff, and then they gave me the job.
And you were like 22 at the time?
Yeah, I was 23, maybe 24, like young dude. Yeah.
So the moral of this story is to snake lines at resorts, and maybe you'll get a very fun job.
Well, yeah, and I think the moral of the story is like figure out what you want and go after it, because I knew that job was open, and I knew that the hiring person was going to be there, and I like put myself in the situation where she couldn't get away for 8 minutes,
it was also interesting because that I don't want to say it was like the advent of the internet, but it was fully like the Wild West. Like no one really knew what the internet was going to be. And this is pre-social media. So this is just the website, right?
Yeah, this was 2011. I didn't even have a smartphone. Like it
Yeah.
was early days, and it was when online editor was like the most junior position you could be at the magazine.
Yep.
And there was a guy before me that was trying to come in too hot, and he like supernovaed himself. So then they had this gap, and they really just wanted someone to like tell what to do. And I was like, yeah, you could tell me what to do. I don't care.
I've been told what to do my whole life.
Yeah. Like I'll never forget my very like first week of work. I come in and then they're like, all right, we need you to make a website post about the top 10 boots coming out. And I was like, all right, cool. And I just made it. I just picked the boots. I didn't like ask anyone. I took the pictures, put it up. And then the next day, Annie called me into her office and she was like, why did you put these boots up? The advertisers are so mad you didn't include like this one. I was like, yo, I don't know. I just did what I thought. And she goes, well, no one gives a shit what you think. Like, why did you put these boots up there?
Yeah, you learn how to like play the editorial advertisement game pretty quickly, like when you just jump into the deep end like that. I was lucky enough to be an intern, so I like kind of I saw how the game was played, and then by the time I got hired, like after 8 months of being an intern, I kind of already knew that. But yeah, you just jumped right into the deep end, like head first.
Oh, and I thought I like knew how the game was played just by like watching Pat live his life, Pat Moore, just being at the house. And then I was like, yeah, you just like do it. And then I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I remember you getting hired. I think you had told me because I think I saw you at Hood that summer or something like that. And
yeah, it was the summer of America's Next Top Pro Model. And
right.
You guys were out at Huck's, like celebrating a night, and I was getting a coffee at Huck's to like go fly for the day to do my interview. And everyone was like, yo, fuck you, Transworld's the enemy. You're going to bomb this fucking job.
I remember it being like bittersweet. I was stoked for you that you were getting a job in the industry, but we were also like collectively bummed that because we didn't have money to
headcount. Yeah.
Online editor. We had Laura Austin who was running the ship for us, and that chick is fucking awesome. But I remember being like, a fucking god Hondo. Just wanted to work with you.
Well, yeah, because I like my very, very first, like, I guess byline was writing online posts for Snowboarder back when I was in college. And I was like, yeah, Snowboarder's the best. I always love Snowboarder. And then I was like, well, I guess I like Transworld now if they're going to hire me. Like, this works.
Yeah, sure, man. And you were good for them, right? Because at that time, Snowboarder always had Bridges. He was like the face of the magazine. You kind of became the forward-facing person that like most riders interacted with, and you're affable and you're personable and you're funny and you love snowboarding. Not saying that anyone at Transworld wasn't that, but like you're a very charismatic dude, and I feel like you brought a lot of that flavor and energy into Transworld.
Yeah, and I feel like before I got there, and this is like they were like the product magazine. They'd have beautiful images and really detailed product stuff, but they didn't have any of the like lifestyle of snowboarding, where Snowboarder was like, you read this magazine because it's your life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, this is my life. Maybe I can bring some of that into the mag. And I think we did a good job for the time I was there. Like we did really cool interviews. We tried to like personalize it a little bit. And I think by the time I left, and I thought the product was really good.
Yeah, what was your column called? Because that's what I like remember when I was.
Oh, I got this. On do's and don'ts.
Yeah, total rip off Vice, because Vice was the coolest shit back then. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of like my name. And then there is a sick illustrator. I think his name Travis Millard, I think is his name, who did the little illustration, and it was like so sick. And I was like, wow,
those were awesome.
So at what point did social media get on the radar at Transworld? Because it was certainly before Snowboarder. Like Transworld was always significantly better at their online presence, and I feel like their social media grew exponentially faster than ours because they were just always like kind of on the forefront of like the online stuff, the new shit.
Yeah. like I remember social. I think Nick Hamilton started the Transworld Snowboard Instagram account because remember Instagram used to only be able to have it on an iPhone.
Yep.
It wasn't on the Android app, and I had an Android, so I couldn't even do it up until maybe February 2012. And it was around that time too. Like we used to just have it. Nick had it. And I think he would just like post like from the hip at events and stuff. Like you couldn't upload photos into the app. You had to be straight from the app.
Yeah. Right.
And,
I remember the day that the like update came out where you could pull from your photos in your post stuff. And it was like that. I feel like that's when I was like, holy shit, this thing is fucking crazy.
And that was the game changer. And I remember like I was like, oh, sick, we can upload now. And I think I uploaded like the cover of the magazine that hadn't come out yet. I was like, oh, this is sick. And from there we had to like figure out exactly what to do. And we were like, oh, well, we'll just post like, I don't know, 10 times a day, just the sickest action photos ever. And we did that for a long time. And we just saw the account like skyrocket. But there was no like actual strategy compared to like how people do it now. Like we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, you have the famous bar story that you guys posted liver and onions, right?
Yeah. On the accounts. And then we woke up the next day and Nick Hamilton, who was my boss at the time, was like, yo, did you have a good night last night? Like, can you take that down?
It was just you guys drunk eating liver and onions at like Huck's, right?
Yeah. And like, I remember I saw Eddie Wall a few years after that when he was running the Transworld social account. I told him that story and he was like, oh my God, I would be instantly fired.
Oh yeah. I remember, talking about when you could pull from your phone and post photos from like what was stored in your phone rather than straight through the app. That's when Mike Yoshida realized that he could like grow the account because you could bank photos and then come up with like some sort of social media strategy. That was like the advent of social media strategy.
Yeah.
And in Yosh's podcast that we recorded a couple weeks ago, he got our account from however many it was to like 50 or 75,000 because after you had figured it out, he realized that if you just post 10 to 15 times a day, it's gonna fucking explode. And that's when things started like really going nuts with social media.
And Yosh would post more than me too, because I remember I was like, man, it was pre like auto posting. And I was like, I don't want to fucking post like 10 times a day on a Saturday. Like I got shit I want to do. So I wasn't posting as much because I guess I'm just lazier. But you guys, Yosh and Snowboarder team were just like posting so much. And you guys eventually passed us. And that's when we were like, ah, fuck, I should have posted more. And we couldn't figure out like, you're like, did they buy the followers? We can't figure out how are they doing so much better than us. And it was just because you guys were posting more.
Well, and it's funny because I feel like that I can't say I never even posted to the Instagram. And Bridges wouldn't even let me get an iPhone until like 2014, just so he could make fun of me for still having a BlackBerry. He would like deny my request for an iPhone. So I was the only staff member on a BlackBerry. But I remember we were only doing that because you guys had done it. You know what I mean? Like it was a constant horse race.
And it was like we had the battle in the print mag of like which product there was better, the battle of who could get the contest recap videos up first.
Yep.
The battle of the Instagram. We were just like battling. And the best part was that I was living with Kevin. So and he worked at Snowboarder.
Yeah. And I was living with Cliz, who worked at Transworld.
Yeah. So we were all like battling at work, but then we'd come home and just tell each other all the secrets.
So now that it's been a decade since that time, did you buy followers at Transworld Snowboarding?
No, we never bought them at Transworld Snowboarding, but we bought followers for my personal account to show advertisers that the number of followers didn't actually matter, and it was like the engagement.
Right.
So then, in this example, I can use names. Volcom stopped advertising in the print mag, and Nick Hamilton went to Billy Anderson, who was running Volcom at the time. I was like, yo, Billy, look at Hondo's Instagram. He's got 42,000 followers. You can get any likes. Like, it doesn't matter what the number at the top says for followers. Like, you shouldn't just advertise with a brand or the magazine or whatever because they have more Instagram followers. Like, there's more to it. And so that was, the only time I ever bought followers was for
No,
that.
that's a good point, because at the start, engagement didn't matter.
Nobody knew what it was.
It was a number, right? Whoever had the most followers, they thought the most people were going to see it. But I think over time they realized, once engagement became part of the social media strategy, it's not how many people you're talking to, it's like who you're talking to.
Yeah, and that was again, this was like pre videos on Instagram. It was pre being able to add any type of hyperlink. I think the only link you could do was like in the profile. And if you wanted someone, I don't even think it was a hyperlink. You had to like copy and paste it from the bar in your Instagram into your web browser to be like, all right, I guess I'll watch this fucking Sunday at the Park this way. It just like you couldn't like get links out to people. So the engagement was like how many likes. You couldn't even do shares. It was just like.
And I always tell people, just because we lived this, people are like, oh, social media ruined snowboarding and this and that, and how did we let it get this out of control? It's like, we didn't know that we were opening Pandora's box.
We had no idea. I don't know. We had no idea. We were like, oh, cool. I guess we just like another way to watch a video.
Yeah, no clue like what it would become, but in fact, it was opening Pandora's box and has like led us to where we are now. But that kind of gets me to my next point, in the sense that we're kind of in an awesome little place in snowboard media now, where the big dogs are pretty much done, and you've gone back to like 3 smaller independent like print titles, right? Which I think is cool.
Oh, yeah, sure. And print is coming back. The Onion just restarted their printing last week, so people are saying that the next generation actually kind of wants print magazines again.
That's cool.
Yeah. What are some highlights? Do you have highlight things that you did at Transworld that stick out?
I think my favorite things I did at Transworld, I really liked all of the contest, kind of the battles we were doing, where I was like doing the commentary with the microphone at like X Games and US Open and all that stuff, where it was like Bridges at Snowboarder and me at Transworld, and we were kind of battling each other doing those interviews. I thought that was really fun. And then I did a story to South Korea with Vans. And it was one of my last trips, or really projects at Transworld. And I really liked that trip. And I thought the story we did was really cool.
Yeah, that one was really dope.
Do you think you just getting in front of the camera and kind of showing that personality was the reason that you became such a big name in snowboarding in like a pretty short... Well, I guess you also had ties from the East Coast, so you were kind of known when you came in. But like within those 3 to 4 years you were at Transworld, like, I mean, I was in Cleveland and I knew exactly who you were, exactly what you looked like. I could have picked you out of any crowd.
Some of those videos, like those contest ones, had like hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah.
And I kind of wasn't really thinking about it as we were making them. And then I would go back and read the comments and be like, damn, everybody's making fun of me. Shit. But yeah, probably. I think like I put myself out there, I don't know, just as like a literal cartoon character.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I actually applied for your job when you left. Not many people know that, but Snowboarder was still like fully staffed up at the time. And my parents, when I was starting to like look at those magazines and be like, oh, I think I'm going to do that, they were like, no, you shouldn't go. They were like, you're not going to work at Snowboard. And I was like, oh, I think I might. And they're like, oh, well, you're going to work at Transworld. And I was like, yeah, if they had a spot open, I texted with Nick Hamilton because Mary gave me his number because she was like, oh, we're kind of booked up here, but maybe Transworld has a spot because you had just left.
And then they gave it to Ben Burke.
Nick got me, like, was like, yeah, let's do an interview. And then like hadn't heard from him like 2 or 3 weeks. It was the summertime, and he happened to be in St. Augustine, Florida, like on a golf or family trip, right? And I had never been to that town, but I happened to be driving through that town with my family going on a vacation down there. So I hit him up and I was like, hey man, like, are you near this gator like reservoir or whatever? He goes, yeah. And I was like, can we meet up for a beer? Like, that would be awesome. I'd love to meet you. I'm supposed to have an interview with you in like a week or 2 anyways. And then just ghosted, never heard back again. Never heard from Transworld again until I showed up in the shared office with Snowboarder and was like, hey guys, what's up? I got hired at Snowboarder.
That is so sick. Did you ever talk to him about it?
Not really. It was kind of like, it was just kind of thing where I was like, nice dude, but he kind of ghosted me. So I was just like,
you know what's funny about back then is I would have just assumed, like, I got my job because my friend worked there and just was like, hey, come on out and start working for us. But back, from 2005 to like, or 2006 to like 2012, you would think that most kids would be like, I'm not even going to like apply there. There's probably so many people that want those jobs. But if they had just called the fucking office,
Oh yeah, they'd be like, sure, yeah, you can come. You can have a job right now.
talk to someone and they'd be like, yeah, come on out. Like, it
That's
was
how
so easy to get a
that's
job.
how I got the job. I called for the internship in like 2012, and you were just like, "Whoa, you're the first person that's called." Everyone else kind of emailed, and I was like, "I didn't even mean to call. I was looking for an email, and and Ruth put me through." And you guys, "Oh yeah, sure, come out in a few months. You got the job." I was like, "Are you serious?" Yeah.
We would get a lot of applications if we posted something on like malachi.com or something like that. But if people had just called the office, they would have spoken directly to someone at the magazine, and that person probably would have been like, yeah, fuck it, come on out. Like, if you want to come out here and do it.
There were like 3 or 4 interns, and we barely did anything because you guys just said, yeah, come on out. And we get there, and Pat's first assignment for me was read every single magazine and pull out funny quotes. I was like, every single one? Yep, every single one. So I had to read every magazine.
I remember when I got my job, I found out this after through Mark Wheaton, and he was like, yeah, they hired you because they thought you were Pat Moore's manager. And I was like, no, nah, just his roommate.
Well, Hondo, so like when your time came to an end, I remember again being like stoked when you got into the snowboard industry and then kind of bummed when you left. What was the kind of reasoning behind, and again, not saying you left the snowboard industry, but
you worked with Adidas for a while too, with that.
Yeah. Adidas, and you were still in the mix, but like as a core community, like magazine member, what catalyzed your decision to be like, I got to go try something else?
T-Bird's asking because he wants to get out. He's like, how do you leave? I've been in this industry for 20 years.
Be a step-by-step process.
Well, when I remember like when Adidas snowboarding launched, we all went to Portland, Oregon to like go there. And I remember meeting the guys that were running Juice Design, who were like the creative agency that was doing all of the Adidas stuff. And I was like, damn, this is so cool. Like, I want to see if they're ever going to have it. Like, I want to work there. Like, it's still in snowboarding. It's in a city. Like, this is so cool. And then I kept in touch with those guys. And then Evan Lefevre hit me up and was like, hey, Juice is looking for a social media manager to look after social for Adidas Skate and Snow. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, that is the one company I'm really looking to like work with. Like, I am interested. I went up to San Francisco, met with them, worked out, got the job. And I thought I was going to be more involved with snowboarding than I really was. And then I get up to SF and it's just so removed from snowboarding because there's no like scene or community. It was myself and Pierre Hondo. We were in the office together and we were like, oh, I guess we snowboard and we can talk about snowboarding together. But that was pretty much it. There was like one other guy, Jeff Brusvin, who was there. He was working at North Face at the time, and we would talk about snowboarding a little bit. And Keenan Rice, and he was a snowboarder.
Yeah.
Then he transitioned to working in like Silicon Valley. So we'd get beers, kind of Pierre, Keenan, and I, and talk about snowboarding. But this crew was really small. And just through being there, it kind of just pushed me out when I thought I was going to be in for a little bit longer, but it just kind of, I was in a major city and it just kind of stopped.
Yeah, San Fran is a funny one. Like even like San Diego, LA, obviously Salt Lake, Reno, Portland, Seattle, like they have scenes, but San Fran doesn't really.
There wasn't like a snowboard crew.
Yeah.
Like that was the one year I didn't even go snowboarding that year. And then I was in San Francisco for a year, and then I left on a 6-month trip around the world by myself and ended up in New York. And then in New York, I was like, all right, there's some snowboarders here. And I kind of got back into snowboarding again through the Shaun White work and then left again.
Yeah. What was the Shaun stuff that you were doing?
So we were producing 2 documentaries for Verizon and Yahoo Sports about the US team on the road to the 2018 Olympics. And it was through this platform that Verizon was trying to push out called Go 90. And they were trying to compete with YouTube. The rumor was that Verizon invested $1 billion into this platform to compete with YouTube. But it was right around the time when Instagram stories got really popular. And the whole platform was watching horizontal video, like Go 90.
Yeah.
But then everybody only wanted vertical video. So nobody used the platform.
It's like the Quibi before Quibi. It was just like this thing
Yeah.
that, and it's funny that both came into snowboarding and we're like, yeah, we're going to use this as like a launch touch point to be cool. And
Yeah. And they invested $1 million into our film. We went all around the world filming it, put it out into the world. And this was like, we had full year long, like 18 months of filming, like Red Gerard, the Ferguson brothers, Haley Langland, Sean White, like this whole amazing storyline. We had a great like showrunner, producer that he made like a bunch of awesome films for HBO. Like it was a legitimate crew, fantastic product. And then it was on this app that no one ever watched. And then 4 months later, they shut the app down, and it doesn't live anywhere on the internet except for my personal YouTube.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's
$1
wild.
million just gone like that.
Yeah, like I thought we were really cool because we like paid the snowboarders to be
Yeah.
in the video. Like we were paying Red, we were paying all these people just to like get their time to film these awesome interviews. And I felt like we were being super fair, and we were all like, it was just great. And then it never really came out.
Yeah, when you guys would show up to contests that year, like everyone was like pretty stoked. You guys looked like super official. You guys had your own zones and stuff. And it was like, oh wow, everyone else is just sleeping on couches and you guys are coming in pretty nice. And then
We were super official. We had an Airbnb.
yeah. Hey man, I sleep on riders' couches that like don't notice that I'm texting them like right before the contest. Hey, can I sleep on your couch?
Yeah, and we had a really tight knit crew too. Like we were traveling around. It was a crew 3 to 4, depends on where we were going, but it was the same crew all around the world. Like we went to Europe twice, we went to Switzerland or to China, New Zealand, all over the US. Like we really went everywhere filming this.
And during that buildup, were you guys there at the Olympics too for both those, for Sean and Red's gold too? Or did it end? It was like supposed to be a pre-promotion for
right when they made the team.
Right. Okay.
We didn't have any of the footage. And then when the Sean White Max documentary came out like 2 years ago or something, that's where all of our footage ended up. So all of the footage that we filmed for the most part is in that.
Okay.
That's dope though. That's a big platform. A lot of people.
At least it went out. They must have licensed. No, none of us got paid for it, but
No.
somebody got paid for it.
Yeah. Isn't that the name of the game?
So yeah, I was watching it. I heard my voice, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's me."
So,
insane.
and then when you say you like landed in New York City, how did that all come about?
So I left San Francisco, went on the trip. As I was traveling, my old roommate, I lived with this guy named Drew in Utah and in Southern California, and he used to work.
Drew Amer, one
Drew
of my
Amer.
favorite people on fucking planet Earth. I love that dude.
Also a former snowboarder employee.
Right, worked at Snowboarder magazine. And when in California, I say I lived with him, but I really just lived on an air mattress in their living room with Drew, Kevin, and Ben Manheimer. I was traveling, texted with Drew. He was like, "Hey, I'm living with Tanner Pendleton. Tanner's moving out. Do you want Tanner's room?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. It's sure. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a place. I don't have a home anymore. So I'll move with you." So I ended up there.
And he's still in like media because he was working for LeBron's company for a bit with the Undisputed stuff. Like he has a pretty successful media career as well. Yeah.
Yes, still a media guy. He works at Front Office Sports now.
I don't know. Is that
It's
big?
another
That sounds, yeah, it sounds
thing.
big.
I don't know.
It's not
But
back
yeah,
office.
he's crushing the media game. Yeah.
Cool. And then now what are you actually up to now? What does a successful exit of all of this look like?
Well, leaving snowboarding, that was like 10 years ago now. And then it's been working in creative agencies. I helped some friends start a sneaker brand, and that kind of did its thing. And then I did a bunch of contract jobs in New York where I was just trying to like figure out what to do. Like I worked at a jean company, worked at a branding and licensing company, worked at Calvin Klein fragrance for like 6 weeks, just trying to figure my shit out. And then I kind of fell into a niche working in creative agencies. And I was working at one based in England, but helping them launch their New York office, doing a bunch of really cool creative work for Adidas again, and did that for a long time. Left there to go help another agency open an office in New York, which was really cool. And then I kind of figured out like instead of doing this for other people, I'm going to try and do it for myself. So now I've started a small consultancy where it's looking after campaign and content, brand strategy and brand ideation, and kind of events and experiences, and working with brands and agencies to kind of either do it or figure out how to do it.
That's dope. What's the name of that brand consultancy?
We call it Newman Worldwide, based off of Step Brothers.
So good.
Yeah.
So
But-
when our podcast makes it really big, you can help us open a New York office.
Yeah, or I can help you make the podcast big. You don't need an office.
Ooh. All right. I like
We'll
that.
chat offline. We'll chat
We'll sign them on.
You're a New Yorker. You're a city guy. You're staying.
I'm in the city now. I wouldn't say I'm a New Yorker, but I have lived here now 9 years.
What is your? Because I'm always so intrigued by like really big cities. I kind of understand LA. LA is a bit of a different beast, but I lived in Southern California for so long. What is like the day to day in New York City look like for you?
It's a lot of walking, which is why I like it, because I haven't owned a car since 2014, which I think is cool.
That's
How do you
awesome.
get to the hill? Because you said you're snowboarding again a little bit.
Honestly, when I go snowboarding, it's flying to the West Coast.
Wow.
It's just better.
Newman Worldwide. Flies to
Dude,
work.
if you think about it, the time it would take to like rent a car, drive to Vermont, get some shitty fucking Airbnb up there, it still costs $200, and then it sucks. I'd rather just fly to Utah where everything's cheaper, and you just do that and stay at like Harry Hagen's house.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
just way easier. And instead of like, I'll just get an Uber to the airport and then go there, instead of like, oh, I got to get this car, or I'm going to meet someone upstate and bring my snowboard on the Amtrak. Like, well, no.
Are you an Icon or Epic Pass holder? And neither of them advertise with us. So whatever one you endorse, we will probably cut anyways.
I don't have one. The only days I went snowboarding this year was on this like Caleb Flowers strike mission to the middle of nowhere, Montana. And it was the ski resort on the, I'm going to not do any names because no names, but it was a ski resort on the Idaho-Montana border that we drove from Salt Lake. It was like 8-hour drive. And then we stayed up at a yurt and camped at the yurt and then snowboarded every day, and then would have to hike back up a mile to the yurt. And those were my days snowboarding.
The Schweitzer?
I'm not saying any names, but it was not Schweitzer.
Are you not saying names because you don't want more people to do it so you guys can still have an untracked yurt for years to come?
Yes.
Okay, fair.
It is like full cowboy style. We were watching some kid go down the mountain, he had boots on.
So for those listening, this is localism from a person that lives across the country. He owns the rights to a mountain run in Montana,
I spent
Idaho border.
3 days there. Boy, were there some fucking kooks.
We are
I'm
going to
just
cancel
saying-
this guy by the end of this podcast.
If I say the name out loud, I'm going to get a text from Caleb to say I'm not invited ever again.
You think Caleb's listening? I'd be honored.
He might be,
Okay, that'd be dope. What up?
but if
Caleb?
he is going to listen, just know, Caleb, I'm not blowing up the spot.
Don't worry.
Um,
Most people on the East Coast don't know where the Montana-Idaho border is. That's just a mesh of like the middle states that they're not sure what it is.
Yeah,
It was so sick. We'd go into the lodge and like we'd get a cheeseburger and it'd be like $4. I'm like, this is like free. This rules.
that's amazing. So I'm gonna just generalize here, right? Like in New York City, you're living in New York City. Are you going to like Broadway shows and shit? Are you going to museums all the time? I've never lived there. I just kind of have these assumptions of what people do.
Yeah. No, it's like I feel like I live pretty normal, kind of. Like I'm not going, we go to museums and galleries when there's openings because it's like 10-minute walk from our apartment, so it's right there. But going to shows, no, because they're expensive. I don't know, just like eat at restaurants and go to the movies.
These are great snowboarding podcast questions. What kind of shampoo and deodorant do you use?
Oh, eat shit, Mark. I want to know.
But
Because
yeah,
I-
it's like, it's weird because being here, the skateboard community and scene is way more prevalent. So I'll like see more people I know through skateboarding. And when I see people I know through snowboarding, like, do you know a dude named Brian Neary?
Yeah.
he lives across the street from me
Oh,
in
no
New
way.
York City. So when I'll like bump into him and we'll do like a snowboard head nod and like talk about snowboarding sometimes. But
But you
it's
still won't let him know your secret mountain, I'm guessing, correct?
no, of course not. I would tell you guys, but it's a select few.
Sick.
Give me the breakdown of New York City. What part do you live in? Where do you live?
So I live in the East Village, which is in Lower Manhattan. I feel like a lot. I used like a lot of the snowboarders that live here, like Jake Durham, Krugmeyer, Colnaven, Colton Feldman. They all live in Brooklyn, so I'll see them every once in a while. And I live right by this pretty popular skate. I'll call it a skate park called Tompkins Square Park, and I'll always see them there because I have Durham's location in my phone, so I can see when they're by my house.
The couple times I've come to New York, I always bump into someone in snowboarding and they're not going to the snowboarding event that I'm in New York for. Like with you on your first day of work at a random hotel. And then one time I was eating dinner and I see a guy walking down the street with one of those like almost looks like you won a vodka bottle at a carnival, just like that size I don't whatever Grey Goose, and it's Krugs.
Yeah.
Walking down the street, hair flowing, wasted, just half the bottle drank. And I was like, oh, and then we ended up partying. He just hung out with us and we got on like a Red Bull bus and went to some other random party.
I ran into you at that party. It was in the townhouse.
That was a cool place.
Yeah, that place was crazy. I was coming after like a engagement party or something and I had a suit on.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I ran into you on the roof of that party.
We were on the roof for a while. Yeah. And everyone, people kept being like, Hondo, we got to go. I was like, no, we haven't seen each other in a while.
We're not going.
Oh yeah, because I forgot about snowboarding wise. I forgot about Big Snow American Dream. Do you ever go there?
I've been there twice. Yeah, Drew and I have gone twice because we realize it's better than going to Hunter.
Yeah.
Because you know what the snow's always going to be. It's like $30 or $40. It's closer. So I've been twice. I hang out with Nick Lipton a lot in New York now.
What does he do these days?
He's kind of doing the similar thing as me, like consulting, trying to get his consulting business off the ground. We work together on a couple projects right now currently, which is why I'm seeing him all the time. But we keep talking about going to the Dome.
That kid he's a really good writer. I remember reading his shit and being like, yo, this kid's really fucking good writer.
Yeah, we were just working on a project for a workwear company called 1620, which
Josh Walker's company.
Who?
Josh Walker.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we were working on a project with Josh and his other co-founder, Ted, Nick and I, that we just went to their office like 2 weeks ago and working with them a bunch.
Very cool.
Here's the terrible question. Did you take anything you learned from your time in snowboarding to now? I mean, it sounds like it was a pretty like organic push through to
no, dude,
where
of
you
course.
are now.
Like you learn how to do so much with absolutely zero resources. We were making all of this content and like amazing magazines, video series, everything with literal pennies. Yeah. So if you can do that, then you can take it to a place where there's actual resources and you can really stretch it.
Yep. You can make it like way more efficient for sure.
Thank you for giving that a good answer, because I was afraid Bird was going to make fun of me for that question.
No. That was a good question, because I work outside of snowboarding for like some clients in the greater Portland area, and I'm so grateful all of the time that I worked in snowboarding, because things are so different outside of it that I'm not saying it's better, but you're like, holy shit, this is like a budget that we get to work with, because they never exist in snowboarding.
I'll never forget this quick stint at Calvin Klein. We were doing like it was for like a Snapchat story and I had to make it. And they were like, yeah, the budget's like $35,000 to film this. And I was like, wait, what? You're going to spend $35,000 on, like, we could just do it right now for like nothing.
Yeah, it would have been $3,500 in snowboarding. And you're like, holy shit.
Well, even you think about like a project like Landline, like a big global multi-year project in snowboarding, the budget's probably something good. But if you were to take that into like even skateboarding, it's probably double.
Yeah.
Or like a multi-year documentary film about basketball, it would be like $10 million.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's What's some of the biggest celebrities you worked with, like while in New York?
I've never really worked with any like big celebs. I think the most famous person I've ever worked with is Sean. He's a celeb.
Yeah,
Who's
that's true.
the most famous celebrity you've seen organically in New York City?
Dude, I'm so bad at recognizing famous people. There was one time we were walking in front of this hotel and this guy was screaming on his cell phone, just screaming. And I honestly forget his name. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna yell. Emily! I am that cat. Forget the guy's name.
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, we were walking and this guy was just screaming on his phone, and I was like, "Damn, this guy looks like an asshole." And then Emily was like, "You know who that was?" And I was like, "No, you seem like a dickhead." And it was Orlando Bloom.
Dude, Pirates of the Caribbean, baby.
Yeah, celebrities that live in my neighborhood because it's like cool spot, but I just don't pay attention. I don't know.
I ran into Pete Buttigieg in Portland, Maine, about a week ago. So,
hey, you said he was your cousin, and I believed you.
Hey,
That's a really fucking dope selfie. That's a good selfie to have.
I'm gonna start telling people he's my cousin. That sounds good.
Yeah, you should.
You immediately know where I fall in politics. I'm like smiling next to my cousin. Yeah, there we go.
You probably shouldn't give up the lie on a podcast, but let's just leave it in. And
Who is your cousin that I worked with at Transworld?
Ben Gavelda.
Oh, he's your cousin.
We are long lost cousins, removed by marriages. But yeah, my parents used to always laugh because they used to think I worked at Transworld for like the first 2 years when I was working at Snowboarder. And they would open one up and be like, "Oh my gosh, your cousin works there." And I was like, "Who?" Ben Gavelda. And I hadn't met him before that. So about 5 years into both of us working at separate magazines, he had done freelance photo stuff, but we actually went from never knowing each other to we were assigned on a story. We were roommates. We were bunkmates. So I went from never knowing him, and then we got to spend like a weekend together and just kind of went all across the family and stuff. It was pretty fun.
But you knew you were cousins before. You weren't like rooming with him and then realized that you were cousins.
No, I knew he was my cousin probably after my first few months at Snowboarder, because my parents like literally were like, "Oh yeah, our son works at Transworld," and would like picked up a magazine and then saw it and was just like, "Oh,
Hondo, what is it like? You've hung out with the Gons, yeah? Mark Gonzalez?
I've only been in the room with him once, and it was weird.
Yeah, what's he like?
Well, he was at the New York Art Book Fair, and he was just like signing books, and I was like, "Hey, can you sign my book?" And I thought he was gonna be like super nice, and he wasn't super nice.
You ever see him skating around the city?
Yeah, and I still get starstruck. I'm like, "What? Gon sighting sick!" I'm like 40-year-old man being like, "Oh, cool."
That counts as a huge star. You left that one off.
Yeah, that's as big as it gets. And
yeah,
that's huge.
For sure.
I've never been in I've never been in like a small room where it's like, "Oh, hey, Mark, what's up, dude?" I've never had that encounter, which I think would be really cool. But I don't know. There's like certain people you see and you're like, "You're so sick." Like if I saw Tony Hawk, I'd be like, "Yes."
Dude, he used to come skate the Transworld Park. You never saw him when he was at the old office?
No.
I came outside one time with I was eating lunch. I had a Trader Joe burrito, and I'm pulling in my Saturn that was like breaking down plastic car, and I just rolled my window down and just stared at him and just turned my head slowly as I was going past him at like 5 miles an hour. I still to this day I wish I would have ran in, got a camera, and taken a photo of him.
Dude, the first day I was ever in SoCal, it was like I flew in. Transworld got me a hotel, or I guess I like flew in the morning, had the interview, had a hotel, and then I flew out the next day. And the next day, Ben Gavelda was like, "Oh, we'll get coffee before you leave," just as like nice thing to do. We go to the Panikin, and the first person I see is Tony Hawk, and I'm like, "God, I've arrived in SoCal. Like this is so sick.
This is gonna happen every day. I'm gonna skate his backyard."
Who is Hondo, who is your favorite pro snowboarder of all time and why?
But there's levels to it. Like,
yeah, you can go levels.
Pat Moore, because he got you a job.
I would put Pat at the top, one, because he's the best dude. We've got history. He's like one of my really good friends, but his snowboarding I was a fan before we were friends. Like we'd be 12 years old. I'd be like, "Who the fuck is this kid? He's so good."
Yeah.
And then I got to know him because his cousin lived in Andover too, and he'd come to skate the skate park, and we like became friends there. And I was like, this kid is unbelievable. And just seeing his level of snowboarding, I was like, he's the best. I've always been a really big Jed fan. I've always thought his snowboarding was like incredible. Even like, you know, I'm older than him, but I've always been like, he's the best. And then like OG snowboarder, like I like idolized Peter and JP. And then when I got to meet them, I was like, this is fucking insane. I'll never forget. I was at Mount Hood hanging out with Pat Moore, and we were at Dave Reynolds' house, and it was like Pat and Peter Line and Dave. And then like Dave and Pat left, and it was just like me and Peter, and I think Drew Amer was there too. And we were playing like Wii tennis with Peter. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
I was recently, there's a Heart Roasters coffee shop on the corner of my street, which owned by, started by Ile Luoma, who's fucking unbelievable snowboarder in his day. But I was there. It was kind of during peak COVID, because I remember wearing a mask, and I'm waiting in line to get a coffee. And I'm like looking at this dude in front of me, and I'm like, fuck, that guy looks so familiar, but I don't know where I know him from. And then he kind of turned his head, and I saw a side profile, and I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking Travis Parker. And I was like, hey, Travis. I went on one trip with Travis, like an Air Blaster trip back to New Hampshire. It was like Travis, I want to say Brandon Cocard, maybe like Tucker Andrews, way back in like 2009. And I just went out on a limb, and I'm like, hey, is that Travis? And I pull my mask down. I'm like, hey, it's T-Bird. And we just kind of got to talking. Turns out he lives like a couple streets away from me. He's in Portland now, doesn't snowboard anymore. But I remember it had been so long since I like fanned out a little internally on a snowboarder. I remember walking home being like, I can't fucking believe that I was just talking to Travis Parker. And I had met him before. There are those figures in snowboarding that I still am like, holy shit. That's crazy that person like even recognizes me and wants to talk to me.
The last time I took and this was a while ago, that I took like a fan out selfie was Sean Palmer. And I was like, this is so sick. It was me and Nate Farrell, and we took a selfie with Palmer, and I was like, this is so sick.
Dude, Nate Farrell, I saw him 2 days ago. Nate and I hang out all the time. He's got a little 2-year-old boy, and he lives like maybe 4 minutes from me, and we've been hanging out, taking our kiddos to the skate park, this little skate park near our house. Yeah, it's cool how you can like grow, and even if people leave or you leave, like you're always gonna have that connectivity. Like you're always gonna have those roots,
Oh yeah, like even this summer I was in Albania, and I ran into Eamon through snowboarding that I knew people all over the world. Like I ran into Eamon, and then I ran into a kid named Harley Hoffman that I worked with at High Cascade in Albania. And I was like, this is the board world. Its reach is when you like are with people that aren't in it and they don't like understand the reach of the board world. Like my wife, Emily, is always like, how do you know people everywhere we go? Yeah. And I'm like, from snowboarding.
And you can always crash on their couch. It's so nice.
Yeah.
Eric Leone sometimes comes to Cleveland because he's married to a girl from here, so he sometimes gets coffee around. So, yeah.
I was in Cleveland a few years ago, and you were not in town.
Yeah.
But the other snowboard Cleveland legends, the Porter brothers from Autumn Line Cinema.
Yeah.
Were in town, and I still talk to the Porter brothers quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Cole
and they still
lived here for a little bit. Obviously, we got the Gerards, but
you got the Gerards. You got Louis Vito.
Louis Vito's from Southern Ohio. Corinne Pasella, Roxy Rising Star, 2011 maybe.
He came on a Transworld park session shoot with us back in the day. Corinne Pasella, respect.
I want to say Brendan Hayes.
He lives in New York now. I saw him not too long ago with the Offline guys. He's been
Ohio,
years.
Right? Yeah. Yep. All right, Ohio respect. Well, Hondo, man, we can't thank you enough for coming on, dude. I missed the shit out of you. I haven't seen you in so long.
No, dude, it's been too long. I honestly don't remember the last time I've seen Clavin before you.
Yep.
I know.
It's like a,
good. But...
It's not as nice. I know. It's okay.
Is Human Worldwide going to bring you out to Portland, Oregon anytime soon? Probably.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I was in Portland in January. That was the last time I was there.
I remember you texted me and I was out
Yeah.
of town. I was gone on a trip somewhere.
I used to go there all the time, but it's kind of been a bit of a break. But I'm hoping I'm there pretty soon.
Cleveland's going through a rebrand. We're voting on a new flag right now, so maybe Newman Rolad can get a contract with the city. You
The
know,
RFP to
Yeah,
do the
what
we
flag.
I think we only have snowboard level budgets though. We don't have real city level budgets.
What's the flag?
What's the flag? Yeah.
Well, the original one's from like the 1800s, but it's there's 3 new designs. I'm not a big fan of any of them, but that's what they're tossing. They look a lot like Chicago. Chicago's got like 4 stars or something, or 6 or more, and we have like 6 or something like that. It's okay.
I'm
I liked
surprised it's
Cleveland
like
when I was
LeBron.
there.
I'm surprised it's not like just LeBron's face.
I'd vote for that one. I'd be
Yeah.
very happy with that.
Did you like the Olympics? Were you proud of LeBron James?
Yes, I'm always proud of LeBron James.
Steph
You
Curry
think-
should have been the MVP.
That's also fine. He played very great. I'm cool with all.
What do you think about Bronny? Do you think he's going to play?
I hope so. I was looking up tickets for the Lakers Cavs when he comes back because I want to take my little brother before LeBron retires to actually be able to see him play. And they are the most expensive ticket by far of the season. It costs like $500 to have nosebleeds, 2 tickets.
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I remember
yeah,
when I was in
that's amazing.
Cleveland. I was in Cleveland 3 years ago when they had the NBA All-Star weekend there.
Yeah, right when I left, I was hoping I was going to be there for that.
And we were looking at venues. We went out for the day to like look at venues because we were doing an activation party for Reebok. And it was still kind of COVID, but not really. So not every brand was there, but we're trying to figure it out. And all of these like dilapidated warehouses were like, finally, it's our time. NBA All-Star. And they were charging these like astronomical rates to rent it, like $75,000 for the weekend to rent like
For like boarded up windows and
there was no electricity. Like you have to bring your own electricity. And then we get to this one spot that we parked the rental car and immediately hear a bunch of gunshots. And the lady who's running the venue is like, that's never happened before. And I was like, sure.
today,
Sure, lady.
that day.
And she's like, yeah, we've got this whole warehouse. We'd love to rent it to you. $2,500 for the month. While all these other venues were like 60 grand, 70 grand a day. And we were like, okay, yeah, we'll take this one. And then I had to tell the Reebok people like, yeah, we heard gunshots, but I think it's going to be pretty good. And then Matt
Insane.
Porter showed up and was like, you are like 1 block away from not being able to do this based on where this is. And I was like, oh, oops.
You're always 1 block away here. Yeah. Cool. I think
All right,
that's-
Hondo,
yeah.
man.
That's
Well,
All right, dudes.
you're the best, buddy. If you come out to Portland, hit me up. If you go out to Cleveland, don't hit up Cleveland.
And if you guys are in New York, let me know. And if you guys want to know where that resort is, I'll text it to you.
Sounds good.
Jason Newman, aka Hondo. That was fucking great conversation. That kid he's something. I love Hondo. He's the man.
Yeah, for sure. And to see someone that was kind of in the media world and just keeps going and like having a very successful career is very nice to see.
Yeah, it's awesome because you can definitely in the snowboard industry kind of get those blinders. So when you talk to people who not only made it out, but like flourished outside of it, but still have those kind of roots in the culture, you're like, okay, sick. That's fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
he still has connections all over the world, can crash on people's couches. But see, me and you were good. This podcast is going to take off and we're going to be able to do this till we retire.
Yeah, it's gonna take off all right.
Yeah. If we put another episode out.
Yeah,
I think I don't know when this one will come out, but it's around episode like 13-ish, or we've recorded 13. So we're doing pretty good.
We're doing all right, man. And what did we say? We're gonna do 25 and then just see where it goes from there. So let's just keep it
Sounds
going,
good.
Mark.
All right. Good episode, Bird.
All right, buddy. What's the rest of the day and have in store for you?
Well, my future father-in-law backed out in the middle of the episode, so I'm hoping the house behind this little brick wall is not on fire. So yeah, basically just trying not to get electrocuted.
I'll let you know before we say goodbye if I see any smoke.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Well, enjoy your day. I got to hop on a meeting in about 10 minutes, but I'll see you soon, buddy. Another episode of My Bird in the books.
Later.